Hello friends, hope you are well. It's Dirt Report time to discuss the recent technological happenings in our beautiful Aussie island. I know it's been a while since the last episode, so apologies. Lots going on. First off, a room change, gotta hide all my gear from my toddler. So I decided to move into a room in the house that has a door that can lock. I guess without context, that makes no sense to you, but I used to sit in a study nook connected to a living room. And it turns out having so many cables lying around on the floor is not good for babies. Who would have thought, hey? Enough about me, let's talk business. It has been a little quiet this June in the tech and telco news. After all, it's nearly the end of our financial year. All the big boys holding back those news till after, and also the bad and good news, of course. So ignoring inflation and the geopolitical status of our world. And of course, the celebration of the death of the necessary but hated Internet Explorer. So let's talk about what's going on with our facial recognition in our local retail shops. The good, the bad, and the privacy policy. Thanks for jumping in. Make sure to like this video if you did and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Let's get started by rolling the intro. Okay. You have had a bad start to your morning. Your hair is a mess, your face had 10 tequila shots too many, and your liver is on sick leave. So what are you to do? You make your way to Kmart, buy that air fryer that everybody's been talking about. Why? Why not? And as you decide between the 10-liter and the 5-liter drawer, because you cannot fathom how storage is measured in liters, in that exact moment as you stand there in front of the shelf, you feel like you're being watched with digital eyes. I thought I had a great gag on my hands with this one, but I started to feel like a typical Sunday morning for many folk in Australia. Much like London, Kmart, Bunnings, and The Good Guys have all been using facial recognition in their retail stores. Forget about being followed by cookies on the internet. This is happening in real life, not just on the Whirlpool forums. This week, choice.com.au put out a report around the privacy concerns of such technology being used in stores. Let's start with the technology. The short of it is that in-store cameras utilize AI to analyze the video stream, capturing your facial features, gender, height, and maybe some more identifiable things. We really don't know the extent of it, but let's say more than we can imagine, right? This creates a face print, much like a fingerprint, but with your face. You can trace the history of facial recognition to the 1960s. That's when mathematician and computer scientist Woodrow Wilson, not the same Woodrow Wilson, it's Woodrow Wilson Bledisloe, first developed a system of measurements that could be used to put photos of faces in different classifications. Because of this work, Bledisloe is known as the unofficial father of facial recognition technology. And the process can be broken down into 3 steps. Detection is the process of finding a face in the image. If you've ever used a camera that detects face and draws a little box around it in autofocus, you've seen this technology in action. On its own, it's not nefarious. Face detection only focuses on finding a face, not the identity behind it. Next one is analysis, also known as attribution. It's the step that maps faces, often by measuring the distance between the eyes, the shape of the chin, the distance between the nose and mouth, and then converts that into a string of numbers or points, often called a face print. Now, the last step is recognition, the attempt to confirm the identity of a person in a photo. This process is used for verification, such as in security features on a newer smartphone, or for identification, which attempts to answer the question, who is this picture? And this is where technology steps into the creepier side of things. If you have ever used Google Photos, you may have noticed that Google has figured out who's who in each of your photos, to the point that you can name that face, and now when you search for that specific person, you'll actually get all the photos they are in. So advocates of facial recognition suggest that the software is useful because alongside identifying criminal suspects, it can monitor known criminals and help identify child victims of abuse. Now, in crowds, it could monitor for suspects at large events and increase security at airports or border crossings. The most long-running type of facial recognition software runs a photo through a government-controlled database, such as the American FBI database of over 400 million photos, which includes driver licenses from some states to identify a suspect. Now, Australian police also use a variety of facial recognition software, often purchased from private companies. There is a long list of benefits facial recognition can offer outside of law enforcement, adding convenience or security to everyday things and experiences. Apart from facial recognition being useful in securing devices like laptops and phones, it can also be beneficial in assisting blind and low vision communities. It can be a more secure option for entry into places of business, fraud protection at ATMs, event registration, or logging into online accounts. And of course, advertising and commercial application of facial recognition promise a wide array of supported benefits, including tracking customers' behavior in a store to personalize ads online. Now, obviously, the application and the benefit is for one party and not necessarily the other, but you be the judge. Now, opponents don't think these benefits are worth the privacy risk, nor do they trust the system or the people running it. The first point of contention lies in the act of collection itself. It's very easy for law enforcement to collect photos, but nearly impossible for the public to avoid having their images taken. Mugshots, for example, happen upon arrest, but before conviction. Error rates in recognition are also problematic, both in false positive sense, where an innocent person is falsely identified, and a false negative sense where a guilty person isn't identified. Now, Choice went out to ask 25 retailers around Australia if they're using facial recognition. You can imagine how well that went, but they also analysed their privacy policies, which was probably the first time since being written that someone actually read them. They found that Kmart, Bunnings, and The Good Guys were the three capturing biometric data at this stage in time. Now, you would be forgiven for thinking, hang on, when walking into a store, I don't agree or sign off on any privacy policy. I don't even have one to read when, you visit a website and things pop up in your face. Well, walking into the store is actually your agreement to it, but in fact, you do get a chance to have a read. Stores have had this little policy on or near the entrance, and in fact, the Three Musketeers here do too. However, as is tradition, it is all in small, hard to read font. Now, Choice also asked more than 1,000 Australian shoppers if they knew about stores using facial recognition, not just cameras. 76% said no. Cameras are obviously no surprise. In stores maybe 20 years ago, you would have a security guard who would watch it all day, like 10 screens, and even maybe recognize a few hooligans here and there. But today, the work is handed off to an AI. Furthermore, Choice also found that 83% of people say that retailers should inform them about using facial recognition in store before they even enter, and 78% are worried about the security of said data, and 65% were concerned about data being used in nefarious ways. So a little bit more than half. I'm kind of surprised about that one. What say you? Let me know in the comments below. So what about notice? Well, sure, signs should be placed out in front of a retailer choosing to use this technology, maybe have a little logo that puts a sticker on the door. Well, you have obviously the criminal element, theft and bad behavior in store that could cause harm to employees and other shoppers. It's definitely got a tick in there, but if it can stop or deter it, after all, it's fully automated. But the question is, how accurate is it? Well, you see, the tech is very early stage in Australia. According to Choice report, the tech will only get better and cheaper, and that's with any other technology. Now, Edward Santo, not to be confused with Edward Snowden, is a professor at the University of Technology, Sydney, who focuses on the responsible use of technology. As a former Australian Human Rights Commissioner, he also led work on artificial intelligence. Here is what Santo told Choice. Even if that technology was perfectly accurate, and it's not, but even if it were, it also takes us into the realm of mass surveillance. And I think there will be a great concern in the Australian community about walking down that path. So what's this fear of mass surveillance that this could lead to? Because let's just follow that bouncing ball. What is it? Well, let's get dark for a second. A recently published study from Oxford's John Penny provides empirical evidence for a key argument long made by privacy advocates that the mere existence of surveillance state breeds fear and conformity and stifles free expression. You see, if we think that authorities are watching our online actions, our in-person actions, we might stop visiting certain websites, certain shops, certain areas of the city, or not say certain things just to avoid seeming suspicious. The new study documents how, in the wake of the 2013 Snowden revelations, this is the other Snowden, the one that, blah, 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 there was a 20% decline in page views on Wikipedia articles related to terrorism, including those that mention Al-Qaeda, car bombs, or Taliban. And I could imagine that this video might get demonetized because I said those words. Now, people were afraid to read articles about these topics because of fear that doing so would bring them under a cloud of suspicion. This could extend to shopping at Bunnings for building equipment that together might look a little bit dodgy and raise some red flags. Now, if people are spooked or deterred from learning about important policy matters or national security, this is a real threat to proper democratic debate. Also, the fear that causes self-censorship is well beyond the realm of theory. Ample evidence demonstrates that it's real and actually rational. A study from PEN America writers found that 1 in 6 writers had curbed their content out of fear of surveillance and showed that writers are not only overwhelmingly worried about government surveillance, but also engaged in self-censorship as a result. And scholars in Europe have been accused of being terrorist supporters by virtue of possessing research material on extremist groups, while the British Library refuses to house any material on the Taliban for fear of being persecuted for material that supports it. This is scary because how would we learn about all the things that are happening in the world if we're afraid to open up books that potentially might have been banned or are banned in other countries? This is far beyond just woke culture cancelling out a few bad tweets. So can a couple of retail stores be the first steps into such a future? Well, Bunnings COO Simon McDowell responded to Choice saying, "At selected stores, our CCTV systems utilize facial recognition technology, which is used to help identify persons of interest who have previously been involved in incidents of concern in our stores." The retailer is utilizing facial recognition as one of the several measures to prevent theft and antisocial behavior. And we're hoping that's all, right? After all, there are numerous psychological studies demonstrating that people who believe they are being watched engage in behavior far more compliant, conformist, and submissive than those who believe they are acting without monitoring. There is a reason governments, corporations, and multiple other entities of authority crave surveillance. It's precisely because the possibility of being monitored radically changes individual and collective behaviors. Specifically, that possibility breeds fear and fosters collective conformity. And that's always been intuitively clear. Now, there is mounting empirical evidence proving it. On the topic if retailers should utilize such technology, Choice's Kate Bauer, a consumer data advocate, said this: "It requires that your collection of that information has to be suitable for the business purposes that you've collected it for, and that it can't be disproportionate to the harm involved. We believe that these retailer businesses are disproportionately in their over-collection of this information, which means that they may be in breach of the Privacy Act." Now, according to Choice, the Attorney General is carrying out a 5-year review of the Privacy Act, and we may see some amendments specifically around new technology like this. But security and criminal acts aren't the only thing getting on board with facial recognition. One of the first occurrences of face recognition merging with marketing took place at the company called Expedia. You may know it. The company provides one of the world's most well-known online travel platforms. They employ the facial recognition technology to create personalized travel experiences for their Hawaii-bound travelers. By using facial recognition to determine the images of the various travel itinerary and spots in Hawaii invokes, they began to identify those of them that resonate with a specific website visitor the most. Now, aside from your mobile phone, you could now have your face attached to your marketing profile, your own personal cookie, if I may say so myself. Would it change anything from how you're tracked right now with your phone for marketing purposes? Probably not, but it's a facet of your life that hasn't really been tracked before. It's all new data to sell you more stuff. Now, I don't even want to go into data security, which I think we all know is a Pandora's box. Even the biggest players in the tech space get their data stolen or leaked. At this point, you may take the approach that nothing is safe. The final question: is facial recognition in stores for safety reasons going to lead to mass surveillance that makes our society meeker than what it already is? Well, your safety has always been a reason for a company or government to impose a certain thing on its citizens. Some things have worked, like gun restrictions in Australia. So what box does mass surveillance fall into? Well, speaking of boxes, with the box in your hand that you took 45 minutes too long to decide on, you stumble your disheveled self over to the Kmart counter and pay. But the AI has already tagged you as a person of interest, and from now on your normal appearance is that of someone who too hungover to realize they bought a toaster instead of an air fryer. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts below. How do you feel about your face becoming the latest way to market to you? It's safety, I guess. Is that good enough of a reason for you? Is this trend only going to expand? Is it actually a privacy concern? Let's chat below. Make sure you like this video if you did and subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks for watching and bye!